All right, let's talk about the modern history of artificial intelligence. Now, this is a story that feels like it's been going on forever, but really, it's a lightning fast revolution that's happened right under our noses. We're going to trace how AI went from this, super niche academic thing to a force that is completely reshaping our world in barely more than a decade. I mean, you use it every single day. It feels like it's been here forever, right? But the truth is, the AI that you and I interact with, it basically exploded into existence just in the last 10 or 15 years. Seriously, this is not some long, slow burn history. It's a story about a sudden, world-changing explosion. So let's rewind the clock to the early 2010s. Back then, AI wasn't grabbing all the headlines like it does today. No, it was working quietly, kind of like a ghost in the machine, shaping our digital lives in these subtle ways we were really only just starting to pick up on.
You remember this, right? You'd search for something totally random, say a Chevy truck, and then bam, for the next week, ads for Chevy trucks are following you all over the internet. That wasn't magic. That was the early version of AI at work. It was analyzing your data, predicting what you might want, and serving up ads. It was our first real taste of AI shaping what we see online. But how did this all become possible? Well, it was like a perfect storm of three key ingredients all coming together at once. First, you have the internet, which created this unimaginable ocean of data for AI to learn from. Second, you have these super powerful graphics cards, GPUs, that were actually made for video games, but it turns out they were perfect for the heavy-duty math AI needs. And finally, you had decades of academic research that laid all the groundwork. When those three things collided, the stage was set.
So, with all those ingredients in place, we enter the breakthrough decade. The mid-2010s saw this series of just shocking advances that dragged AI out from behind the scenes and threw it right into the global spotlight. And that changed everything. Okay, so the first big domino fell in 2012. A neural network called AlexNet just completely crushed the world's biggest image recognition competition. I mean, for the first time, an AI could see and identify things in photos with incredible accuracy. This sent a shockwave through the tech world. Suddenly, money and talent just flooded into deep learning. This was it. The modern AI era had officially begun. Then, just 4 years later, the next earthquake hits. Google's AlphaGo beats the world champion of Go. Now, Go is a game that's seen as way more complex and intuitive than chess. And this was huge, because it showed AI wasn't just about crunching numbers anymore. This was a jump from pure calculation to something that felt, well, human. It was mastering strategy and what looked a lot like intuition. And then came the big one. In 2017, some researchers at Google introduced a new concept. Now, this might look all technical, but the idea behind it, the transformer, is probably the single most important breakthrough in the entire story of modern AI. So what was the big secret? What was the transformer's magic trick? Well, to put it simply, it gave AI something called an attention mechanism. It meant that for the very first time, an AI could understand context. It could look at a whole sentence and figure out which words were the most important, just like you and I do when we read. It stopped just processing words one by one and started actually understanding their relationships.
The impact of this was, it was total. This one single idea became the fundamental building block for pretty much every advanced AI we have today. Ever wonder what the T in GPT stands for? Yep, it's transformer. Every time you use ChatGPT, you are using a direct descendant of that one breakthrough paper from 2017.
So once the transformer was unlocked, the whole game changed. We went from AI that could analyze information to AI that could create information. And this is where things get really, really wild. This is the generative explosion. Just look at this timeline. It shows you how insanely fast things started to move. OpenAI drops its first GPT model in 2018. Just 2 years later, we get GPT-3, which was a mind-boggling leap forward. And then 2 years after that, ChatGPT puts all of that power into everybody's hands. The pace was it was staggering. And to really get a sense of how big that leap was, just look at the numbers. GPT-3 was trained on 175 billion parameters. Now, you can think of parameters as all the little knobs and connections the AI can tweak while it's learning. The jump in complexity was just astronomical. The models went from spitting out kind of coherent sentences to writing entire essays, poems, and even computer code that was shockingly human. And it wasn't just about words anymore. In 2021, OpenAI released DALL-E. You could just type in a sentence, any sentence you could imagine,
and it would create a totally new, realistic image out of thin air. This was the moment AI proved it wasn't just a writer, it was an artist. It could create.
But look, even with all this incredible tech, it was still mostly used by researchers, developers, and, tech nerds. That was all about to change. In late 2022, one simple chat window put all of this insane power into a text box that anyone, anywhere could use. ChatGPT had arrived.
This number right here is it's hard to even wrap your head around it. 100 million users in just 2 months. To put that in perspective, nothing, not the internet, not the smartphone, nothing in the history of technology had ever been adopted that fast. It wasn't just a product launch, it was a global phenomenon.
And that was just the spark. Look at the weekly users of the top AI tools today. We're talking hundreds of millions of people using these systems every single week. It's not a novelty anymore. It's become a basic utility, just like a search engine.
And the ripple effect has been enormous, right? You have governments scrambling to figure out how to regulate it, with the EU passing the world's first big AI law. It's fueling massive breakthroughs in other fields too, like when AlphaFold solved a 50-year-old problem in biology. The technology is touching everything. Which brings us to today. The key takeaway from this whole story is that the pace, well, it isn't slowing down. If anything, the revolution is still speeding up. To really appreciate the scale we're dealing with, let's compare it to the most complex object we know of, the human brain. Your brain has about 86 billion neurons. The latest AI models, like GPT-4, are estimated to have around 1.8 trillion parameters. Remember, those are the tunable connections. The sheer number of them is already way beyond what we can fully comprehend. And what are they learning from? Well, a model like this is trained on over 45 terabytes of data. What does that even mean? Okay, imagine you took a new photo every single second of every day. It would take you more than 8.5 years just to generate that much data. The scale is just immense.
What's so incredible is that this wild reality we're living in, it was dreamed up decades ago. The pioneer of computing, Alan Turing, he envisioned a machine that would start like a child, be educated, and learn to become intelligent. And when you think about it, that's kind of exactly what we've built. So there you have it. From a quiet process running in the background to a global force, all in about a decade. We've watched it learn to see, to strategize, to speak, and now to create. And the one thing that's been constant this whole time is acceleration. The only real question left is, where does all this take us next?